A millionaire was leaving the parking lot to enter a restaurant when he saw a desperate beggar who asked him for something unexpected. Gabriel, a middle-aged man with features marked by success and time, parked his luxury car in front of the city's chicest restaurant. The night was cold, and the light from the lampposts reflected on the wet asphalt, creating a melancholic atmosphere. He adjusted his expensive coat, prepared for another night of business and superficial conversations. As he walked towards the entrance, something caught his attention. There, in the corner of the parking lot, near a pile of cardboard boxes, was a crouched figure. Gabriel stopped, squinting to see better in the dim light. It was a woman, visibly debilitated, holding a baby in her arms. The scene was heart-wrenching. The woman was pale, her eyes dull with fatigue and pain. The baby, a few months-old girl, was wrapped in a thin blanket, clearly insufficient to protect her from the biting cold of the night. Gabriel felt a lump in his throat, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. With hesitant steps, he approached. The woman raised her head, her eyes meeting his, and a silent plea for help passed between them. She tried to speak, but her voice came out weak, almost inaudible. Gabriel crouched down, trying to listen better. "Please," she said, her voice trembling and broken. "Take care of my daughter." Gabriel stood still, absorbing the weight of those words. He looked at the tiny face of the baby, who slept peacefully despite the desperate situation. The woman, with visible effort, extended a trembling hand and handed Gabriel a letter, sealed and yellowed with time. "When she turns 18, give her this letter." Each word seemed to steal a bit more of her life. Gabriel, with a heavy heart, nodded, taking the letter and the child. He felt the urgency of the situation and, for the first time in a long time, the responsibility of something greater than himself. The woman smiled, a smile of relief and gratitude, before letting her body succumb to exhaustion and weakness. Holding the baby carefully, Gabriel called for help. But as he waited, he couldn't take his eyes off the woman and the mystery she had handed him. In that moment, under the cold lights of the parking lot, Gabriel's life changed forever, and he knew he couldn't go back. Gabriel looked at the woman, her body now frail and weak, holding the letter as if it were a treasure. She tried to keep her eyes open, fighting against the darkness threatening to envelop her. The cold of the night seemed to intensify the urgency of the situation. He knew there was no time to lose. "What's her name?" Gabriel asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman took a deep breath, gathering what was left of her energy. "Clara. Her name is Clara." Gabriel looked at the baby in his arms. Clara. Such a simple name, but one that now carried immense weight. He had no idea how to take care of a baby, let alone someone who was already destined for a life so different from his own. But he felt an undeniable responsibility, a commitment he couldn't ignore. "You need to take her." The woman's voice was an almost imperceptible whisper. "Promise me you'll take care of her, that you'll love her like your own daughter." Gabriel felt a lump in his throat. He had never made such a big promise, so full of implications and consequences. But as he looked into the woman's eyes, he saw a strength and determination that he couldn't ignore. "I promise," he said, feeling the weight of the words as they left his mouth. The woman smiled, a weak but grateful smile. Her eyes filled with tears, but not of sadness. It was a mix of relief and hope. She knew she was leaving Clara in the hands of someone who would do everything he could to protect her. "This letter," she continued, her hand trembling as she handed the envelope to Gabriel. "When Clara turns 18, give it to her. It's important. She needs to know who she is, where she came from." Gabriel took the letter carefully, feeling the symbolic weight of that piece of paper. He looked at the woman one last time, seeing life slipping away from her eyes. She closed her eyes, exhausted, but with a semblance of peace. The paramedics arrived shortly after, but it was too late. Gabriel remained there, holding Clara, as they took care of the woman. He knew that, at that moment, his life had changed irreversibly. He had taken on a huge responsibility, and he was determined to honor the promise he had made. Clara, in his arms, stirred slightly, and Gabriel felt a wave of protection and affection flood his heart. He didn't know how, but he knew he would find a way to give Clara the life she deserved. The promise he had made was not just an obligation, but a new purpose that he was determined to follow. As the paramedics placed the woman on a stretcher and covered her with a blanket, Gabriel looked at the starry sky, feeling the magnitude of what had just happened. He hugged Clara tighter, knowing that their journey together had only just begun. That night, Gabriel took Clara to his luxurious downtown apartment. He entered, holding the baby with a mix of nervousness and determination. The silence of the apartment contrasted with the whirlwind of emotions in his mind. He gently placed Clara on his leather sofa and began pacing, trying to process everything that had happened. Doubts started to haunt him. He, a man accustomed to the world of business, sophisticated parties, and international travel, now had the responsibility of caring for a fragile life. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was one of his business partners, asking about a meeting scheduled for the next day. "I can't talk right now," Gabriel said, quickly hanging up. For the first time in years, something more important than work dominated his thoughts. He looked at Clara, who slept peacefully, oblivious to the chaos around her. The sight of the little girl brought a wave of emotions. He remembered the desperate look of her mother, the plea in her voice, and the promise he had made. The words, "take care of her as if she were your own daughter," echoed in his mind. Gabriel picked up the phone again, this time to call his housekeeper, Anna. She was an experienced woman who had worked with him for years and had a natural maternal instinct. "Anna, I need your help," he said, urgency evident in his voice. "It's a long story, but I need you to come here now." Within an hour, Anna arrived. Her eyes widened at the sight of Clara on the sofa. Gabriel told her everything that had happened, from the encounter in the parking lot to Clara's mother's farewell request. Anna listened attentively, absorbing every detail. "Gabriel, this is a big responsibility," Anna said, her voice gentle but firm. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Gabriel looked at Clara again, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I have to do this. I promised her mother. Clara doesn't have anyone else." Anna nodded, seeing the resolution in Gabriel's eyes. "Then let's do this together. I'll help you take care of her." In the days that followed, Gabriel dedicated himself to learning everything he could about taking care of a baby. Sleepless nights, diaper changes, and bottle feedings became his new routine. Every smile from Clara, every laugh, made him feel he was on the right path. He began adjusting his professional life to accommodate his new responsibilities. Meetings were rescheduled, trips postponed, and for the first time in a long time, Gabriel started prioritizing something beyond work. His friends and colleagues noticed the change, but few knew the true reason behind it. One night, as Gabriel rocked Clara to sleep, he felt a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He realized that although his life had taken an unexpected turn, he had found a new purpose. The promise he made to Clara's mother was not just an obligation, but a calling he was determined to honor. Clara, with her eyes closed, slept peacefully in Gabriel's arms, and he, looking towards an uncertain future, felt strangely optimistic. He knew the road would be tough, full of challenges and doubts, but he was ready to face them. After all, he had a promise to fulfill and a heart that was beginning to open to a love he had never imagined he could feel. Years passed quickly, and Gabriel's house turned into a home filled with laughter and discoveries. Clara, now a bright-eyed child with boundless energy, brought new life to the once silent and austere mansion. Gabriel, who once lived for work and high society parties, now found joy in simple moments like pushing Clara on the garden swing or reading bedtime stories to her. From the start, Gabriel dedicated himself to being the best father he could be. He actively participated in every important moment of Clara's life. Her first day of school, her first words, her first steps. Anna, the housekeeper, became an essential figure, helping to raise Clara with love and wisdom. Together, they formed a small family, each playing a vital role in the girl's upbringing. Clara, with her curious spirit and generous heart, charmed everyone around her. At school, she excelled not only in intellect but also in her ability to make friends and care for others. Gabriel watched with pride as she grew, seeing in her a reflection of the kindness and strength he had promised to protect. Gabriel's social life also changed. His old friends and business colleagues noticed the transformation, but few understood its depth. Extravagant parties were replaced by more intimate and meaningful events, often centered around Clara and her achievements. He discovered a new network of friends, parents of Clara's schoolmates, neighbors he had never really known. Gabriel, once solitary in his pursuit of success, was now surrounded by a community that shared the same values of love and care. One night, as Clara did her homework at the kitchen table, Gabriel sat beside her. He was reviewing work documents but couldn't help but glance at Clara, focused and determined. "Daddy, can you help me with this?" Clara asked, pointing to a math problem she couldn't solve. Gabriel smiled and pulled his chair closer. "Of course, let's look at this together." As they worked, Gabriel felt a wave of gratitude. That moment, so simple and ordinary, was a testament to how his life had changed for the better. Every small challenge Clara faced was an opportunity for him to be present, to guide her and support her. Clara was growing fast, and with each passing year, Gabriel saw more of the woman she would become. She was determined and compassionate, traits he was sure she had inherited from her biological mother, whose memory he strove to honor. He kept the letter in a safe, knowing that one day Clara would discover the truth about her origins. But for now, he focused on being the father he had promised to be. On a sunny weekend, Gabriel and Clara decided to take a trip to the countryside. As they walked along a wooded trail, Clara held Gabriel's hand and said, "Daddy, you'll always be with me, right?" Gabriel stopped and looked at her, feeling a tug at his heart. He knelt down to her level and replied, "Always, Clara. I promise to take care of you, and that's the most important promise I've ever made." Clara smiled, a smile that lit up her face and Gabriel's heart. He knew that regardless of the challenges that lay ahead, he would be by her side, facing each obstacle and celebrating every victory. They continued their walk, hand in hand, ready to face the future together, with the certainty that Gabriel's love and promise were the solid foundation on which they built their lives. In the silence of the night, after Clara had fallen asleep, Gabriel found himself alone in his office, surrounded by echoes of his past. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, an old habit he now maintained out of nostalgia, and looked at the walls adorned with awards and certificates documenting his rise to the top of the business world. Each frame, each trophy told a story of success and sacrifice. Gabriel had grown up in a small town, the son of a mechanic and a teacher. Life was simple, but his parents were honest, hardworking people who always encouraged his dreams. He was an ambitious young man, determined to leave that town and achieve something greater. With much effort and sleepless nights, he earned a scholarship to a prestigious university, which was the first step towards the life he had always imagined. The years in university were tough, but Gabriel excelled, not only academically but also as a natural leader. He quickly became involved in startups and projects that gave him his first tastes of success. After graduating, he dove headfirst into the corporate world, swiftly climbing the ranks of a large company. It was a time of long hours, constant travel, and building a network of contacts that would place him in the powerful position he had always sought. However, with success came sacrifices. Gabriel drifted apart from childhood friends, from his parents, and even from himself. The relentless pursuit of the next big deal, the next million-dollar contract, became his sole motivation. The luxurious house, imported cars, and extravagant parties filled the void he felt, but only superficially. Slowly, he realized that the relationships he built were shallow, based more on what he could offer than on who he really was. This led to a failed marriage, ending in divorce when it became clear that his priorities were far from a stable family life. Gabriel found himself alone, surrounded by everything he had ever wanted but empty of deeper meaning. Then, on that fateful night in the restaurant parking lot, everything changed. The sight of that woman on the brink of death, and her desperate plea for him to take care of Clara, was a call he could not ignore. Something inside him awakened, a part of his heart he had forgotten existed. He saw in that request a chance for redemption, an opportunity to build something true and meaningful. Slowly, Gabriel began to rebuild his life. He stepped back from business a bit, delegating responsibilities and focusing more on Clara. His former colleagues noticed the change, but he didn't care. He discovered that true wealth was not in signed contracts but in moments shared with his adopted daughter. Gabriel also reconnected with his parents, regularly taking Clara to visit them. They were delighted with their adopted granddaughter, and Gabriel found peace in returning to his roots, reminiscing about the lessons of humility and love his parents had taught him. One night, while flipping through an old photo album, Gabriel found a picture of himself with his parents, taken on the day he left for university. He showed the photo to Clara, recounting stories of his childhood, of what his parents were like, and what he had learned from them. Clara listened attentively, fascinated by stories of a Gabriel she had never known. These moments of reflection and reconnection with his past gave Gabriel a new perspective. He realized that all the success and wealth he had accumulated over the years only had true value when shared with those he loved. And Clara, with her vibrant spirit and pure heart, was the greatest blessing of all. Thus, Gabriel continued to tread his path, balancing his professional and personal life, always guided by the promise he made to Clara's mother. And in doing so, he rediscovered the man he always wanted to be. Not just a successful man, but a man of worth, a dedicated father, and a truly fulfilled soul. Years passed, and Clara grew older, becoming increasingly curious about her origins. Gabriel, true to the promise he made to her biological mother, kept the letter safely locked away, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. He knew that day was approaching rapidly, and the anticipation weighed heavy on his heart. It was a cold winter night, shortly before Clara's 18th birthday. Gabriel sat in his office, the letter in his hand, feeling the weight of the unread words. The yellowed paper and the old seal contained secrets that he knew would change Clara's life forever. He was afraid of how she would react, but he also knew that the truth was her right. Finally, the big day arrived. Clara, freshly 18, was radiant, surrounded by friends and family at a surprise party organized by Gabriel. He watched with pride as the young woman she had become, strong, smart, and full of life. But the joy of the party was tempered by the knowledge of what lay ahead. When the guests had left and the house fell silent, Gabriel called Clara into his office. She entered, curious and slightly nervous, sensing the seriousness on her father's face. He invited her to sit down and, with trembling hands, handed her the letter. "Clara, this letter was given to me by your biological mother on the night I found you. She asked me to give it to you when you turned 18. Gabriel's voice was gentle yet firm. "I don't know what it says, but I think you're ready to find out." Clara took the letter, feeling the emotional weight of the moment. She looked at Gabriel, seeking courage in his eyes before breaking the seal. Carefully, she unfolded the paper and began to read. The silence in the office was palpable. Each second seemed to last an eternity. "My dear Clara," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means you have grown into the woman I always dreamed you would be. First and foremost, I want you to know that I love you deeply and that every decision I made was with your well-being in mind." Gabriel watched as Clara read, seeing a mix of emotions pass across her face: surprise, sadness, and growing determination. The letter continued, revealing details about Clara's biological mother's life, her struggles, her dreams, and finally, the painful decision to entrust her to Gabriel in hopes of a better future. "I had no choice," the letter explained. "I was sick and knew I couldn't care for you. When I met Gabriel, I felt he would be the father you deserved. And I was right. He promised to take care of you, and from what I know, he has kept that promise. Be grateful to him as I am." Clara felt tears streaming down her face but kept reading, absorbing every word. The letter spoke of her biological family, her origins, and the immense love her mother felt, even from a distance. There were also instructions for Clara on how to find relatives she had never known, details about her inheritance, and a final plea for her to live life fully, with courage and love. When Clara finished reading, she looked at Gabriel with tear-filled eyes, but also with gratitude. Without saying a word, she got up and hugged him tightly. He returned the embrace, feeling a deep sense of relief. They stood like that for a long time, sharing the pain and hope contained in those words. After a few minutes, Clara pulled away and looked at Gabriel. "Thank you for everything, Dad. I know this wasn't easy for you either." Gabriel smiled, wiping away a tear that threatened to escape. "You will always be my daughter, Clara. Nothing changes that. I'm here for whatever you need, now and always." That moment, so full of emotion and revelations, marked the beginning of a new phase in Clara's life. She now carried with her not only Gabriel's love, but also the legacy and memory of her biological mother. And with that, she was ready to face the future with a deeper understanding of who she was and where she came from. Gabriel felt that, finally, the promise he made on that cold night in the restaurant parking lot was fulfilled. He had fulfilled his duty, and now, more than ever, he and Clara were ready to build a future together, firmly rooted in the truth and love they shared. The years leading up to Clara's 18th birthday were not without challenges. Adolescence brought a storm of emotions and conflicts that Gabriel could never have predicted. Despite the strong bond they had built, the natural difficulties of this phase tested the limits of their relationship. Clara, now a teenager, began to seek more independence and question the rules imposed by Gabriel. At first, they were minor issues: curfews, the type of clothes she wanted to wear, the places she wanted to hang out with friends. Gabriel, always concerned about her safety and well-being, struggled to loosen his grip, which led to frequent clashes between them. One night, after a particularly tough day at school, Clara stormed into the house, slamming the door. Gabriel was in the kitchen preparing dinner. He looked at her and saw the frustration written all over her face. "Clara, what happened?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Nothing, Dad. I'm just tired of everything," she replied, tossing her backpack on the floor and heading to her room. Gabriel sighed, recognizing the signs of an emotional storm. He followed Clara to her room and gently knocked on the door before entering. She was sitting on the bed, staring into space. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked, sitting next to her. "I just feel like you don't trust me," Clara said, her voice trembling. "All my friends can go out and have fun, but I always have to follow so many rules." Gabriel felt a pang in his heart. He knew his concern could sometimes feel suffocating, but everything he did was out of love and protection. "Clara, I trust you. It's just that I worry. I want to make sure you're safe." Clara looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, Dad, but I need space to grow and make my own mistakes. You've always taught me to be strong and independent, but I can't do that if you keep me under constant watch." Those words struck Gabriel deeply. He realized he was being overly protective, perhaps out of fear of losing Clara, the only family he truly had. "You're right, Clara. I promise to try to be more understanding and give you more space. I just ask that if you need me, don't hesitate to come to me." Over time, Gabriel began to fulfill that promise. He gave Clara more freedom, allowing her to explore the world in her own way. However, with this freedom came new challenges. Clara started attending parties and making new friends, some of whom Gabriel didn't approve of. There were nights when she came home late and heated arguments arose over her choices. One particular event marked this turbulent phase. Clara, excitedly, asked for permission to go on a weekend camping trip with friends. Gabriel, though reluctant, agreed, remembering his promise to give her more freedom. However, he couldn't help staying awake that night, worried about her safety. The next morning, Gabriel received a call. Clara had been lightly injured during a hike, and they were heading back home. He hurriedly drove to the location and found Clara, looking a bit shaken but safe. Seeing her filled his heart with relief. "Are you okay?" he asked, embracing her tightly.
"I'm okay, Dad.
"It was just a minor accident," she replied, trying to reassure him. On the way back home, Clara reflected on the incident and Gabriel's visible concern. "Dad, I know you want to protect me and I appreciate that, but I also need to learn to handle things on my own. I promise to be more careful and responsible. Gabriel smiled, feeling a mix of pride and relief. I trust you, Clara. I just want you to know that I'll always be here for you, no matter what. This phase of conflicts and reconciliations strengthened their bond. Clara learned to value Gabriel's wisdom and concern, while he learned to trust more in her ability to make her own decisions. Together, they faced the challenges of adolescence, building a relationship based on mutual respect and unconditional love. The lessons learned during these years prepared Clara for the moment she discovered the letter from her biological mother, and helped Gabriel understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go, trusting that those we love will find their own way. The morning sun illuminated Clara's room as she sat at her desk, her biological mother's letter open in front of her. The words echoed in her mind, revealing secrets she never imagined existed. The curiosity about her roots, a seed planted years ago, now flourished intensely. Clara knew she needed to follow the clues left by her mother and uncover more about her true origins. Determined, Clara began her journey. With Gabriel's blessing and support, she prepared to face the unknown. The first stop would be the small town mentioned in the letter, where her mother had spent the last years of her life. The journey was long and introspective, each mile bringing forth new questions and emotions. Upon arriving in the town, Clara was greeted by a picturesque scene of cobblestone streets and old houses. She felt a strange familiarity, as if this place somehow already belonged to her. Armed with courage and determination, she headed to the local registry office, where she hoped to find records that would aid her search. At the office, Clara was greeted by an elderly lady, with kind eyes and a welcoming smile. Upon explaining her situation, the lady, Donna Lourdes, immediately offered to help. After hours of research in the old archives, they found Clara's birth certificate, confirming the identity of her biological mother and providing new names and family connections. Clara then decided to visit the address listed in the records, an old house on the outskirts of town. The building, though simple, had a charm that made her feel closer to her mother. Knocking on the door, she was greeted by a middle-aged woman who introduced herself as Anna, an old friend of Clara's mother. Anna invited Clara in, and as she served tea, she began to share stories about Clara's mother. She talked about the tough times, but also about the immense joy Clara had brought to her mother's life, even before she was born. Anna revealed that Clara's mother was a woman of strong spirit and generous heart, who faced adversity with unwavering courage. As Anna spoke, Clara absorbed every word, feeling a deep connection to the woman she had barely known but who had, in a way, always been with her. Anna also mentioned other relatives Clara might want to meet, and offered to accompany her to a farm on the outskirts of town, where a great-uncle who had been very close to her mother lived. The next morning, Clara and Anna set off for the farm. The journey was peaceful, marked by rural landscapes that reflected the simplicity and beauty of rural life. Upon arrival, they were greeted by an elderly but vigorous man with a welcoming demeanor. His name was Joachim, and upon seeing Clara, his eyes filled with tears. "You have your mother's eyes," he said, moved. "I always knew that one day you would come to find us." Joachim shared stories about Clara's mother's childhood, her youth filled with dreams and struggles. He revealed that she had always been determined to give Clara a better life, even if it meant great sacrifices. Clara felt each word as a gift, filling the gaps of her identity with love and memory. During the following days, Clara explored the farm and its surroundings, learning more about her family and roots. She participated in daily tasks, learned family traditions, and felt part of something bigger. The connection with Joachim and the other relatives brought her a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. At night, under the starry sky, Clara reflected on everything she had discovered. The quest for identity was not just about finding names and faces, but about understanding the choices and sacrifices that had brought her here. She realized that her journey was not only to discover who she was, but to honor her mother's memory and the legacy of love and courage she had left behind. When the time finally came to leave, Clara felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. She said goodbye to Joachim and Anna, promising to stay in touch and return whenever she could. She returned home with her heart full of new memories and a deeper understanding of herself. Gabriel welcomed her with a tight hug, proud of Clara's strength and determination. She shared her discoveries, every story in detail, and together, they celebrated the unbreakable bond between past, present, and future. Clara knew that, despite the challenges, she now possessed a complete and rich identity, forged by the love of two families who, in different ways, had always been by her side. The night fell slowly over Gabriel's house as Clara held the letter in her hands, the yet unknown contents pulsing in her mind. She knew this moment would mark not only the end of her search, but also the beginning of a new understanding of who she was and where she came from. Sitting at the kitchen table with a single candle illuminating the yellowed paper, Clara took a deep breath and carefully broke the seal. Every move was deliberate, as if opening the letter could unveil long-guarded secrets. The handwritten words by her biological mother flowed gently, laden with love, pain, and hope. "My dear Clara, if you are reading this letter, it means I am no longer here to tell you personally about my love for you. From the moment I knew I was pregnant, my life became a series of difficult choices and painful sacrifices. But the greatest decision I made was to entrust Gabriel to be your father." Clara felt a tightening in her chest as she read those words. She had always known her story began with a mother who had to let go. But reading these words now, years later, brought a new wave of emotion. The letter you hold in your hands is not just a document. It is a testament to my love for you and my wish for you to know your origins when the time is right. I know Gabriel has cared for you with all the love and dedication I could have hoped for. Tears began to stream down Clara's face. Each sentence was like a thread connecting her past to the present, revealing details she had never imagined discovering. The letter continued, unfolding moments from her biological mother's life, her hopes, her dreams, and the weight of her decisions. "You are strong, Clara. I saw that from the moment you came into my life. Don't forget where you came from, but also don't let that define who you are. Follow your heart and know that wherever I am now, I will always be rooting for you." Clara held the letter close to her heart, enveloped by the maternal love overflowing from each word. She now had a tangible connection to her biological mother, a woman whose sacrifice brought Clara into life and entrusted her to Gabriel's loving care. With a trembling smile, Clara looked at Gabriel, who watched her with eyes full of understanding and pride. She stood up and walked over to him, embracing him tightly. There were no words that could fully express the gratitude and admiration she felt for him. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Gabriel hugged her back, holding her tenderly. "You have always been my daughter, Clara. Nothing will ever change that." They stood there, finding comfort in each other's embrace, sharing a moment that would mark their lives forever. The revelation of the letter not only brought answers but strengthened the bond between them, a testament to the power of love and connection that transcends the boundaries of time and space. Clara carefully tucked the letter away, knowing that while her journey of discovery had come to an end, the story of her life was just beginning. She now possessed not only a complete identity but also a deeper understanding of the love, courage, and sacrifice that shaped who she was. And with that, Clara looked to the future with hope and determination, knowing that no matter what destiny held, she had deep roots and an unwavering love that would guide her every step of the way. The sun gently shone over the park where Clara now sat, watching children play. She held the letter in her hands, a constant reminder of the journey she had taken to get there. Beside her, Gabriel smiled, his gaze brimming with pride and love. Clara reflected on everything she had learned along her journey. From the unexpected encounter in the parking lot to the revelation of the letter, each moment had been a piece of the puzzle that composed her identity. She thought of the adolescent conflicts that challenged her to grow and find her voice, the mysteries of the letter that led her to discover new horizons, and the relentless pursuit of her true origin that deeply connected her with her history. More than just a quest for answers, Clara's journey had been one of self-discovery and acceptance. She had found not only her roots but also a deeper understanding of herself and the people who shaped her. Along the way, Clara also discovered the power of Gabriel's unconditional love. He had been not just her father but her guide, her constant support every step of the way. Together, they shared moments of joy, pain and growth, forming bonds that nothing could break. Now, with the letter safely tucked in her heart, Clara was ready to embrace the future with confidence. She knew her journey was far from over. There were new chapters to be written, new stories to be told, and she was prepared to face every challenge with the wisdom and strength she had gained along the way. As the sun set slowly, Clara felt a profound sense of gratitude, grateful for the past that shaped her, for the present she lived, and for the future stretching out before her, full of endless possibilities. And beside her, Gabriel looked out at the horizon with a serene smile, knowing that wherever life took them, they would always have each other. Because, in the end, Clara's true treasure of her journey lay not only in the answers she had found, but in the love and connection that had guided her from day one. With that, Clara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the gentle breeze caress her face, and knew that with love, courage, and the determination to follow her heart, her journey would continue to be a story of growth, learning, and above all, love. Click on the videos that are being recommended to you now.